Good evening and welcome to another Thursday night with duo Daemonologie. Before I get into tonight's program, let me tell you about a couple of upcoming appearances by the duo. They will be on virtually at the Life or Death conference on June 4th. You can look them up at their website, Life or Death Conference. And on June 5th and 6th, the next weekend, Phenomenology will be held in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and the gentlemen will be there. You might want to stop by and say hello to them if you're going to that. So tonight's topic is hypnotism. You are getting very sleepy. No, that's me. In 1799, a scientist named Franz Mesmer would use magnets to cure his patients of all kinds of maladies. He thought that all beings possessed something called animal magnetism. Now, it's not the kind of animal magnetism you're thinking of. It's not about going after that hot guy at the gym, that kind of animal magnetism. This was his theory that all living things had some sort of a humor, as they called them, or fluid that had magnetic powers, and that magnets would straighten this out and these people would be cured. He did have some success with this, but subsequent doctors, when they reviewed all of his results, they realized that he may have been successful not because the people were being magnetized, but they were being hypnotized, as it would later be called. They would be cured by the power of suggestion. So in the 1800s and 1840s, that was, a Scottish surgeon, his last name was Braid, adopted the word hypnotism, meaning sleep condition, hypnotism. It was two Greek words put together, as most medical things are. And he became known as the father of modern hypnosis. That is just a very, very brief introduction to the history of hypnotism. And I'm sure that the guys will be much more in depth about the history and the modern uses of hypnotism and how it applies to the paranormal. I wish I could stay for this conversation, but I am late for class already, and if I want to remain a student of parapsychology, I had better get my butt to class. So, without further ado, here are James Anito and Carl L. Johnson.
Thank you, Elise.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much. That was funny.
And bye.
Bye.
Well, we are sad to lose you tonight.
Yeah, I miss you.
Well, evening, everybody. It's been a while, Carl.
Yes, it is. I'm glad to be back.
I know it's been
dinner
a few
was
weeks.
great.
Yes. Yeah. That was a pretty hearty dinner. We, of course, have our candies as always.
Yeah, there was beef stroganoff without the strobe.
Without the strobe or without the knoff. And of course, we got my beautiful girlfriend, Celine, in the background. You met all her last time, of course. Well, was she on the show yet? Oh, yeah, she was on the show. Yes, she was
there.
What was our last discussion? Carl, do you remember?
It's been too long for me. I don't.
What was our last discussion? I don't remember.
It was something to do with demonology. I know that.
It was something about ghosts.
What are ghosts made of?
Yes, I don't. Actually, we were trying to break down the components of what could a ghost be.
Yes.
And of course, as with all our topics, we end up with more questions than we do answers, but we delve into it and we, dissect it.
Yes, for sure.
And, like, what could a ghost be? How substantial are they? Talking about something that many people don't even think exists. It was challenging to make an entire, show about that, but we did.
I believe
there's something. That's what we conclude. They are something.
I would say not a lot of people believe ghosts exist. If you look at the statistics of the United States in general, I think it's 44% of people believe.
That's almost half. That's close to half.
Yeah, that's a good margin, So like it's not.
It was certainly worth doing a show about,
But for sure, and I think it's very interesting because of ectoplasm, the Ghostbusters, and of course the early adaptations with photography, how they used to create the ectoplasm and they caught it, but how they used to actually manufacture it, and of course in a malicious way, just to fool people. So it was interesting because they find new particles every day. And so they could be one day come across something.
Categories and subcategories of particles, which are like tiny things.
Yeah, they could come across something one day and actually say, this is what a ghost is. So it'd be fascinating.
What I touched on last show is my idea about what ghosts are. I call it the paraparticle, where it's energy, basically. That's a broad term. Yeah, sometimes it's pure energy.
Yep.
It fluxes in and out of reality in a sense. Sometimes it's pure energy. Other times, because it's vibratory property.
Yep.
Sometimes it's quasi-matter, but it's never all matter. It is sometimes all energy, and it changes like that.
And I think that leads into a topic of tonight, which is known particle that is involved within us that can possibly be the function of why this can occur. Hypnotism.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very fascinating topic, and when you brought it up, well, at least was specifically was researching it, and then you brought it up, I was like, that would be a good show. And you really know what? It is a great show idea because
It is.
there have been many times in my 15 years of doing this where people have brought up the ability of using a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist in their mind to bring back lost memories during
Suppressed
possession
lost
or through
memory.
traumatic
What's
experiences.
still under there? What's under the layers that have been blocked?
I have never utilized this because I think bringing back haunting memories is never a great thing. So I've never utilized it, but I know other people that do the same work as us. So utilized it.
Some people like New Age thought is that you should uncover everything that's there, free all your suppressed memories. There's a reason they're suppressed, though. That's not always a good thing to bring those out.
It's like open the floodgates, right?
Yeah, why undo a whole upbringing of suppressing memories when they're going to be painful anyway?
Yeah.
It's not doing somebody any good. But it relates to our last topic about our ghost real. What are they made of? The substance of ghosts. Because many people contend that hypnosis doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's you create confabulations, which is false memories.
One is, and of course, the personage who's credited with modern clinical psychology, clinical hypnosis, is Franz Anton Member, is born in Mesmer. He was born in 1731. He died. No, 1734 he was born, and he died in 1815. So that was his era, and he started out being vastly popular. We're talking about for a couple of years. So then he was just,
well,
ridiculed after that.
In reality, I think a lot of people misunderstand what a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist is. One can be used in a form of suggestion in the same way of psychotherapy is.
Yeah.
You see a therapist, this therapist listens to you and gives you advice. But what a hypnotherapist does is they make you focus on something and they give you that suggestion that you can overcome this. And medically, it is proven that it works. It's not a doubt, of course.
Oh yeah, it can do it, but it's nomenclature because we call it hypnosis. A lot of physicians don't take it seriously.
Yeah, for sure, because everybody thinks of hypnotism.
Elise brought up a point when she said in a brief intro, she contributed. Actually, Elise kind of suggested this topic of hypnosis, and she said ill humors. They used to say ill humors. Well, humors are like something of the body, the flow of the body. It's like ether. What is ether? It's the substance. It's all around us, but it's nothing. It doesn't exist. The ether, or you theorize that there's something being generated around us. It's like atmosphere, but it's not atmosphere.
For sure.
The ether around us, the humors that flow through our bodies.
Yeah.
Ambiguous terms of the 18th and 19th centuries.
See, I think there's something that I thought of during the thought of hypnotism, because it is a very fascinating thing. But of course, I've always said through many of our topics, and you have as well, of how powerful the human mind is and how a lot of it is the substance of what we actually truly deal with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people jump to the conclusions of a supernatural, preternatural force.
Yeah, and it is a natural thing because it is of the mind. Say we're in a situation. Let's apply that, James.
Yeah.
Say we're in a situation where somebody felt they were demonically possessed.
Yes, for sure.
All right. We want to get to the demon. We want to pry that out,
Yes.
Okay. We don't have time for lengthy exorcism, so we induce a hypnotic state, suggestive state,
State of trance.
and ask the demon to come forward. Now, wouldn't that further convince the person that they are demonically possessed? Wouldn't that plant the seed?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that bring out some psychological bugaboos that we really don't want to uncover or even create them?
Of course it would. I think you said it very. You put them in a state. Like a lot of the time, you use the word trance. You're in a trance state, and I think we've always said like anytime you open yourself up and you allow something to either be brought by memory or brought into you through application of like trying to communicate.
Right.
It's dangerous, and that, people call that channeling in a spiritual sense. Maybe that's really all tied and in some way connected, that these people create a false reality, and this false reality can be induced through a shared hallucination.
You ever heard of the mentalist? You told me like an early mentalist, well, early, but he's still living. He's 86 years of age. I've seen him perform. The amazing Kreskin. He contended that there's no such thing as hypnosis. And he had, for a while, it was $50,000 reward for anyone. I think he upped it. Anyone who could prove there was such a thing as hypnosis. He said it's just relaxation and suggestion. That is what hypnosis is. That's how it's defined. You just, don't call it hypnosis.
Yeah.
So nobody ever claimed that reward.
What do you think about stage, like for hypnotists, like stage hypnotism?
Well, I think that shows that's a practical demonstration that shows that it's real. Yeah.
Quack, quack. Or quack, 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 quack. Some of it's staged, of course, but in some form, these people really believe they can be controlled, and they do.
I'll tell you,
if told to them.
If I was called up on stage by theatrical hypnotist, and I wasn't a good subject, I couldn't ruin it for him. I wouldn't say, nope, I'm not under it. I'd have to go along with it somehow. I'd feel too bad.
What do most of them do, though?
When I've hypnotized somebody, it has been unintentional. I've done it, but it's not this long process. I've relaxed people, giving relaxation suggestions, but as far as putting them into what you call a full hypnotic trance, I've done that incidentally. I didn't mean to, but it happened.
I think you put yourself in a form of hypnosis when your inner self talks to you when you meditate. I think it's the same application.
Positive reinforcement, or reinforcement of your suggestion.
Because if you think about it, in clinical hypnotherapy, right, it is used for trauma. It's used for getting over addictions. It's used for childbirth. It's used for many things that have been applied to these things and occurred. It doesn't work for everybody, but for these people that it works for, it's because they're suggestible, they're gullible, they have the ability for somebody to bring forth their inner self and believe in their inner self. You hear this ideology of inner self, like Hinduism, Buddhism, inner self, right? A lot of Eastern belief systems. And I think you see it within hypnotism, with the ideology of that. Like, I don't know, like Sarah Yusuf said, access the interdimensional part of your human self. I don't necessarily think that in that sense, but maybe it does connect. If you go to your inner self,
however,
maybe you expel your emotions. Who knows?
Well, we all have something called, and now I'm getting more Jungian, like Carl Gustav Jung, the pioneering psychotherapist. He talked of the shadow self, that part of ourselves that we do not want to acknowledge, but is a vital, essential component to our own psyche. The shadow self, where we try to keep that, suppressed, pushed away. Maybe hypnosis could bring out the shadow self, but it could be better dealt with, recognized.
See, we've talked about something like the pelvic experiment.
Yes.
Thought forms, tulpas, how the psychological realm of things, like psychological demons and what could be demons. I now think of hypnotism, and I kind of have thought this thought in some sense, but this really came to the forefront because of you and Elisa's topic choice. Is what happens if you put somebody under hypnotism, like a hypnotic state, and you do something like the Philip experiment?
Well, that's blending the both,
right?
The best of both worlds.
Like you put them in this trance-like state for them, and their thought to create something.
But will that, whatever is created, will that linger afterwards? Will that remain?
See,
after the person is brought out of that trance?
Who's tried that? Has anybody ever? I haven't thought of like anybody that's attempted something like that. I think that
not deliberately, but I mean, when we've had past life regression, when we were doing experiments back in the 1970s at Rhode Island College with the group Pyro and Parapsychology Investigatory.
Creative past life.
Yeah. Now we were bringing people back, volunteers back into their past lives, but I think since they were in something of a hypnotic state each time, I think they created it in their mind.
Confabulation.
I'm not saying they made it up. Confabulation was the process.
Yeah.
And, they went back, but they never spoke in another language.
Yeah.
And they couldn't tell who the reigning monarch was if they were in a European country centuries ago. which is kind of a nasty question to ask. All right, who is the king? Who is the queen? But they could never substantiate any of that, historic information. They would talk about the king, but
That's a good question. Can demonic phenomena be defined as being behavior outside normal social construct that can be accessed through the breakdown mental mechanisms?
that's a way of getting to the core.
Yeah, for sure.
It could be. You know what? We'd call it demonic if it was harmful.
Yeah, malicious.
If it's
evil,
malicious and all that, then what else we got to call it except demonic?
Yeah.
If it's not bothering anybody, they wouldn't call it demonic, even though it might be the same principle involved.
Yeah. I think, to get to the point of hypnotism and the applications of in a clinical state where it revolves around demons, right? There are a lot of psychologists that, of course, don't believe in demons, but they believe in the concept of possession or demons in a psychological form, like creation, like something from schizophrenia. The hyper gullibility they have, that they are able to create, an alter ego, or they have dissociative identity disorder. But what happens if these people don't have these disorders? Actually, really, in some state, most people actually, this is what's fascinating to me. It's unraveling like an onion. Most people that can go in a hypnotic state by a hypnotherapist is somebody that has dealt with a trauma or has dealt with something that's impactful in their life.
It's like why a lot of people seek out hypnotherapy as a treatment, as a therapy.
I wonder if you don't have a trauma that can be induced or something that suppresses you still. That's what, of course, that you said.
You mean
if you don't allow them to suggest you, that's because maybe there's nothing for them to suggest you off of. Like they can't put you in a state of that trance because in the form there's nothing that has been bothering you or is bothering you at this point in time in life. So they can't.
It would be an interesting experiment to put suggestive subjects under a hypnotic states of suggestion, and say, who's inside you? Who is that inside of you? Who is in your mind? Some subjects would probably say, no one, just me.
And then somebody might.
But somebody else, and they might just be quiet because they don't have an answer to it. But you come across a random subject, and they might, they might say, he wants to speak, it wants to talk. You don't know what is in there. A construct, a set of associations that makes a personality, or synthesizes a personality, a character.
Well, yeah, if you can create false memories from hypnotism, which is factual,
yes.
Why can't you create a factual force or a factual personality? Not factual, but you know what I mean, a false personality.
Well,
you can create a false
that
memory.
ability to create a person within you, that can start in childhood, like the imaginary friend. The imaginary friend is your companion, the one you play off of. The child is lonely, wants to express him or herself through that inner person. Maybe later on, as an adult, or an adolescent, maybe that's what could exist inside and be brought up. And of course, that begs the question: are they really just imaginary friends? Are they seeing something?
Yeah, and
someone.
And then, of course, it goes to the many studies of the pineal glands not developed. And
Yeah,
they're so innocent that they're able to see the difference between this barrier and
I don't think the application of hypnosis would be dangerous in such a thing unless somebody is already unbalanced. I don't think you could take somebody and say you have a person in you. You have it's a demon. I think the person might act it out for a while, but I don't think they keep that with them at all. So unless they're really susceptible.
Sarah asked great question. So have you seen an alleged or confirmed possessed person undergo hypnosis? No,
not that I can. I don't think I have.
No, I wouldn't suggest, like we were saying a little earlier, I wouldn't, and I think Carl, I don't know if you would agree, I wouldn't suggest somebody that has gone through that situation to go through hypnosis to try to remember their memories that have been forgotten through those time periods of gaps that they lost, because maybe they do not want to know what they did,
unless
what they did to other individuals.
Unless at the time I didn't recognize it as hypnosis. Maybe I was saying, you are, this has no power over you. You are free from this. Maybe that was creating, that super suggestion.
maybe that's the same thing when you psychotherapy. Maybe it is suggestion.
Which,
right?
I didn't care at the time as long as it helped the subject out, however this is working, if I'm planning a suggestion, let it be helpful.
So it's fascinating. So, people are probably like, I know we don't have, we have a good amount of people watching right now, or like not that many people right now. But to be honest, I think a lot of people thought like, what does hypnotism have to do with the paranormal? And I had never thought that, because I've always thought the connection to like how it has been tried to be, or has been applied to people that have been affected in a haunting state, maybe a form of oppression, possession, or even a stage of attachment where they channeled and they lost memory and they seek out, or like past life regression. Like they are suggested, or they go seek to this individual to be brought to this hypnotic state. So there are so many applications of it. You can even call a form of what we do in forms of when people really maybe aren't dealing with a paranormal situation, that we do what they ask us to do.
Well, they're expanding
them in a hypnotic state.
Expanding the mind's focus. Focus. It's a concentration, a form of concentration. This hypnotic state. Now you can tell a hypnotized subject that they are light. Light as a feather. They're getting lighter and lighter. And then you do the two-finger carry. You can lift them up if the person is suggestible.
But they center their weight. That's why basically it
makes a physiological change.
You
can do remarkable things, but if somebody's convinced that the supernatural is real, then it is real to them. Hypnotic suggestion can amplify that.
So it's fascinating. I think it rolls into like you said, our last topic, but it rolls into many other things that we talked about. And I think people hopefully, even though we have some time to kind of expound a little bit.
We'll expound and we'll expand.
But on the topic, and of course, generally we could talk about other things, take other questions related off the topic.
Yeah, and then I got a
thought topic, but off the topic. What's your
thought?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Talking about applied hypnotic state. I can use an example. I can think of a lady, homeowner, who was participating in a seance. And you might know who I'm speaking about as I go along. This was conducted on October 30th, 1973. This really happened. And she had a couple of paranormal experts at the table. There was a medium, at her table in her home. And she was being told that the purpose of the seance was to find the evil, the witch, the demon witch in the house. So this poor lady, who was already suggestible, and had visions, they're telling her, the medium and the presiding paranormal authority were saying, open your mind, let it speak through you, let this demon speak through you. And they already had their mind made up who they thought the demon personage was.
Yeah.
And you got a darkened room, you've got candles lit, and they're chanting these things. So the lady of the house went into a trance and started speaking in a language that no one could interpret or understand, which was probably just phonetics, just rambling on.
Yep.
But it sounded like some old language.
Words.
So, and that went wrong because she was taken over to the point where her body was flung out of her chair with psychokinetic force into the next room. And so that could have, she was all right, but it could have been detrimental. But now, wasn't that putting her into some kind of state of further suggestibility if she was already suggestible? And they got all these trappings around. That's in a darkened room, and they're talking to her in these droning voices. Let it come through you. Let it speak. Tell us what you want with her. Tell us what you want. Now, of course, that happened in Harrisville.
I wonder what you're talking about.
Yeah, you would have caught on if I told you.
I already knew what you were saying.
And the paranormal authorities were Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Lorraine was seated at the table. There was actually a priest there too, and they had a medium. So this woman was, all these people are around. There must be something going on in my house if all these people are here and they believe what I've been seeing. And of course, Lorraine had already pronounced it as a demon. She diagnosed the problem. It was the demon witch in the house, Bathsheba. So that they're already leading her towards that. And they wanted to come through her. The droning sound, the darkened room, the candles burning, the paranormal experts, the medium course, that's going to create a suggestion. It's throwing her into a hypnotic trance, and she's going to believe that she's taken over.
For sure.
I'm sure that was not a real language she was uttering. The only suggestion of anything preternatural was that night, besides probably some raps on the walls, was that Carolyn Perrin's body was flung out of her chair.
But do you also think, though, like, I'm not doubting because you had your experience there. I've had experiences there with you and had my own experiences, which I don't think it's evil or no demonic witch, of course, but do you think that could also been a form of that hypnotic state, that repulsion out of the chair or the repulsion in the chair back? Like, do you think that could have been something that could have been generated, and, I know Lisa's involved with it and, she just... Parapsychological aspect of it with psi and psychokinesis. Do you think that could have been formed because she was so suggestible and was suggested, if that was in fact what occurred, that she could have created that kind of
psychokinetic force comes into action when the subject believes it. If they are convinced,
when you generate that kind of power, you get forced out of
yeah,
right.
I mean, it's accelerated muscle, propulsion too.
Who's seen her legs? Was her legs like this, or was her legs on the ground? She could have, if she was
go through that window, dude.
If she was so suggestible, though.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that she was, because I don't want to doubt that.
I don't at all think Carolyn Perrin staged that. I don't think.
Not staged it, but if she believed in her mind that she was going.
I think it was both. I think it was accelerated muscle performance. I think she could have lurched her body, flung it back, and also there was some level of PK psychokinetic force there that took her slender body, and she was a slight woman, threw her into the next room. I don't for a minute think the demons picked her up and flung her. I think there are ways we could explain it. But the environment, the trappings, why did that, I don't think it would have happened the same way if they were just sitting around talking about it and it was daylight.
No, I don't think so.
For one thing, the subject, Carolyn Perrin, knows they're holding a seance. Conducting a seance, and she knows she's the center of attention for it. She's convinced her house is haunted by a demon. And they got all the trappings there, so I'd be surprised if something didn't happen. Carol. Now, her husband Roger wasn't taken over and flung into the next room. It was actually only Carolyn. And plus the priest that was there, he was just aghast. He didn't know what to do. He'd never encountered anything like that. But there, the principle of suggestion, the principle of hypnosis comes into play.
Yeah, I know, Sarah.
Sarah.
We've already. I basically answered this, but would the use of hypnosis not be recommended for dark or demonic cases if they may create openings that may be taken advantage of? Possibly. Once again, I think in some power of it, as we didn't say as well, I really do believe that if you do overcome what you believe to be demonic possession or truly demonic possession, and you overcome that battle, it's a war of attrition.
Yeah.
And you believe in yourself, you believe in your higher power again, and you've overcome it. And you bring all, like we've said over and over again, you bring these wave of emotions back. There is a possibility that actually demoralizes them, deconstructs that while they built up, and is able that personality or that true demonic entity is brought back, because these things, even though they say they are cast out into this pit of fire or this lake of fire,
where you're giving them an invitation to come on back.
Come back.
Yeah, here's your empty vessel. Come on in.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I think hypnosis could be used as a shortcut. If you're hammering away to get the demon to come to the surface, which is the purpose of a lot of these, exorcism rites. Bring it out. Let's look at it. Let's have this demon speak to us, and then let's cast it out. And give us a sign of your presence. The subject enters into a hypnotic trance. Then that gets right to the core and it's going to come forth. It just happens faster if it's hypnosis, but it's not often called that. Hypnosis is somewhat of a vague term anyway. Hypnosis, Greek for sleep,
Yeah.
So, sleep induction.
We lost, not to throw on the pedestal. we lost our woman for the night, Elise.
Yes, we have,
because of schooling,
and we are
glad to have another beautiful woman with us tonight.
Is that beautiful woman still awake?
And she's still awake. So, for our listeners and our watchers or viewers, whatever you want to say, because my English is bad.
His English is bad.
My English is bad.
Bad English.
What do you believe or think about hypnotism?
We want an answer. We want something definitive. We want something to share with our audience.
And would you let me hypnotize you on camera?
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly wouldn't know because I've never like experienced it, or like has ever like been to a show or like really got into that.
Do you believe it's possible?
My mind is open to it. Like, I wouldn't mind trying to get into it and like know a little bit more about it.
So do you believe you could be suggested to go to your inner self? You believe that people that can have that
Yes.
ability to do so?
If you see that hypnosis is focus,
Hmm.
concentration. Normally we're scattered, our attention is scattered by exterior stimuli.
You also have to be very calm and collective too.
Yeah, you go. Yeah,
Of course.
Sometimes it's really hard to do for me, but
yeah. I
I'm
wonder.
very calm right now.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder if you naturally had a sporadic mind, like myself. Like I'm like a squirrel. Like oh, nut! There's actually nuts right there. Nuts! Sorry, I had a lot of
Yes,
M&Ms,
you
guys.
are. I guess you've had enough.
But seriously,
Should
though,
be shut off.
someone that is sporadic, maybe hyper, that has ADHD or ADD, somebody that has that mindset,
Can that person be hypnotized?
can they be hypnotized
Depends
because
on
they're
the
not
person,
able
really,
to?
yeah.
They're not able to. They're not able to focus. Like I can focus
A
on
difficult-
certain tasks.
A difficult subject, excuse me, somebody who gets distracted easily. A difficult subject would be somebody who very much wants to be hypnotized.
Hmm.
He gets anxious about it, like, oh, it's just not happening. I would be the latter. I would be that.
Yeah, me too. Like it's not happening.
But it would depend. I could enter into hypnosis because I know it's real. If the hypnotist had a soothing voice and I had, I gave them credence, I believe they could.
Brought you to
hypnotize
that
me.
almost
Yeah.
sleep-like state, so that you're like just so relaxed. Yeah, mellow.
My mother, they had a hypnotist come into where my mother worked, talking about, like to quit for people who wanted to stop smoking. And, it became fun. And my mother just couldn't be hypnotized. That day, anyway. No, I don't think my mother could be hypnotized. I mean, I don't know. If I went into it like a clinical environment and there was a clinical hypnotist there, certified, whatever, and they were speaking to me in a soothing voice, I think I could enter a hypnotic state.
Yeah.
Because I'd want to,
Yeah, I'd let myself.
Yeah,
If you have the voice for it and make me calm and like relaxed, then most likely.
Yeah, if Channing Tatum came up to you and said, "So go into a hypnotic state," you definitely would. You would look at Channing Tatum's eyes and you're like, "Now can I put you in a hypnotic state?" Because you love mine.
Of course, he doesn't have the
You can
voice that I
try.
have. Could hypnotize you over the phone.
Just kidding. Dan Rivera, hello. Everybody that is watching so far, Marion, Sarah, Chanel, and other people. I just want to shout out Dan Rivera because Elise brought up life and death.
Yes, that's
And,
a topic that we researched.
We have a lot of events coming up, thankfully, because with COVID starting to come to an end, more
Starting to
people being
open up.
vaccinated. Dan Rivera and the Nesper team are having Carl and myself
Yes.
to the Warren Seekers of the Supernatural Paragon
Yes, I'm so
in
looking
October.
forward to that. Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to Dan. If you haven't checked that out yet, go do so.
It's not till October 30th, but still.
It's going to be unprecedented.
Yeah.
Unprecedented.
It's
Yeah.
unprecedented.
Unprecedented.
It will be,
Yes.
because they never had us there for it.
And they never had us.
Yeah.
But also, too, you get to check a lot of the items out that are, not all of them,
You mean the haunted items?
but a good chunk of the haunted items that are in the
That
museum.
looks
will
like fun.
The Lawrence Occult Museum is that what you're
Oh!
speaking?
Oh!
be-
Let's go! I love haunted items.
Yeah, we're going. We're speaking at that. So there
Oh,
you go.
sounds
She's
like
see
fun.
people. She's excited. You should be too.
Oh!
But yeah, so we have that. She's excited. You should be excited. We're excited. It's going to be a great time.
Excited. You should
I'm
be
more
excited.
than excited.
Keith Johnson will be there, Sandra Johnson, Dan Revere, Tony Sparrow, the
Some of our good
Nesper
friends,
team, Ryan Buell, Eric Knapp.
People were looking
I don't know
forward to
anybody. I'm sorry.
She doesn't know anybody beside us too. So that's why we're
It's
doing
okay,
demonology.
I love
Dual demonology.
Yeah. Is
But-
Nathaniel going to be at that one?
No.
He's going to be in Mass.
But yes,
Mass
then,
Paracon.
yeah, Mass
you. Wait, where
Paracon.
is it?
What?
Wait, where is
It's
it?
in Connecticut.
Oh, cool.
This is his second planned location.
Sweet. That sounds like fun.
Well, look at that question. Talking about Dan Revere and Nesper, and the doll that will be there too at
Annabelle.
Warren Seekers of Supernatural Truth Paracon. I've heard rumors that Annabelle has the capability to hypnotize people.
If you believe it.
Really?
If you believe that Annabelle can hypnotize and you stand there unblinking looking at that unblinking doll.
Well, you could find out. You could find out.
The best
That's
way
right.
is to expose yourself to Annabelle. Go see Annabelle.
Yep.
Look at Annabelle if you dare. If you are sufficiently foolhardy.
Beware.
Look into those doll's eyes.
Yes.
You know, just see if you come away
I
with
would
something.
love to do that.
And I don't say this disrespectfully, but I've already slept with one Raggedy Ann haunted doll, and
You
Carl can
confess
attest
it.
to this.
Yes, I didn't sleep.
He
did sleep with it.
I don't say this out of disrespect because I respect everything and everything. I would love to sleep with
It took
Annabelle.
us 20 minutes.
Honey,
To
can I sleep with Annabelle?
Yeah, as long as you're not with me.
It took us 20 minutes to blow up that doll that you slept with, and it was worth it.
Wait, what doll is this? I know it's a Raggedy
The
Ann.
blow up
Annabelle.
Raggedy out.
No, it wasn't a blow doll, Carl.
I should.
It wasn't. Guys, don't listen to this man.
All right, I wasn't there. I didn't see it.
He's conjuring up lies.
Like when you're conjuring
Okay.
the lies.
Yeah, okay, babe.
What is it called? But no, seriously, Stephen, Pam, Barry, who hosts Gettysburg Ghost Exchange, used to run tours at Lookout House, and they had this Raggedy Ann doll that they have.
You know, it wouldn't be funny if somebody did get hypnotized by Annabelle. If somebody looks.
Could you imagine?
Well, I don't think it'd be harmful.
Like I don't know if Nesper would allow that because it is dabbling with what they believe is evil.
Well, I don't think anybody in Nesper, would be sufficiently responsible to set that up.
No.
So if you looking, but if somebody did that on their own, just thought they could be.
Well,
hypnotized by
they just did an unprecedented investigation at the Warren Museum,
Yeah.
and which was a great investigation. So, maybe they can do something like that. Maybe they not to put somebody at risk, but if they have a good amount of people that are willing to back them and be their backbone within the situation, if they put themselves at risk. I'm not saying put somebody at danger but sometimes to experiment, you have to kind of cross the line. And I'm not necessarily willing to do so, but I just sleep with a
What do you
Raggedy
mean
Ann doll.
by? Yeah, well, no, it was pretty.
Let's see if they can stand in front of the doll and basically get a hypnotic state.
Well, the doll has a reputation. Raggedy Ann dolls don't all have a reputation. There's Raggedy Andy too, and Raggedy Andy gets no press anymore.
The dolls are known to move, but I did sleep in the same room with Annabelle. Dan, please. My girlfriend gave me permission to sleep with Annabelle. Please. I'm joking, guys, but it is a good joke. We don't recommend that.
You qualified it.
But seriously though, so hypnotism is a very interesting thing. I think it does kind of it's enveloped within or the umbrella, part of the umbrella of the paranormal world because it does have connections. There's a lot of connections. It's unknown. Like
I think it's incorporated more than people know.
Yeah.
Into like seances, ghost hunting. People don't know that they're using
a form of hypnotism. Yeah.
Hypnosis, and like with the ghost again, you can people accept that it's something, it's real, but you can give an argument, like Kreskin did, the mentalist. It's just suggestion. Well, I think those are synonymous terms.
Yeah, and I think we've talked
Just
about
because he didn't call it hypnosis.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before. If you really look at through human civilization, every civilization has some form of a basis of an afterlife, of a thought of a soul or a ghost. There are some civilizations that don't, but a good chunk of them do. And I think if you take all that collective people and we talk about
Other cultures that don't embrace any belief in ghost or an afterlife or anything?
I think there are a few of them, but I don't know them
There
off
are
the top of my head.
societies in the sense of clubs, and
Well, yeah, well,
organizations.
there's
And the
religion.
Stoics of old, of Grecian.
Well, a Scientologist doesn't believe in God. They believe, so I'm saying they don't believe in that form of afterlife. I don't know what the hell they believe in.
God by any other name.
Um,
Gods that reside on other planetary systems.
Yeah. So I think there are definitely civilizations. I can't come off the top of my head, but I'm emphatic that I know that there are civilizations that never had a form of an afterlife. Or
Civilizations, though, that's pretty.
Well, it's a lot of civilizations create religions that create a form. Create that mythicism, the folklore of what turns into religion.
What about the Neanderthals? What did they believe?
Well, they had cave paintings of animals.
Yeah, Cro-Magnons. How about them? They're pretty nifty.
So, I think
I think that Neanderthals were probably the first people, that did embrace the belief in the afterlife because of their burial customs.
Well, so the first form of religion or ideologies of religion, animism, which branches off into many different things, as animism is the trunk, basically.
Yeah.
Animism was the thought and very connected to Shintoism.
Animist meaning the
everything's life. Yes.
And branching out.
So if everything's life, that means once you die, you're still a part of life. You go back to life, right?
You are returned to the elements, into the ether.
But that doesn't mean there's a supernatural realm aspect of it either, though, because that doesn't mean that we go to, and it's not necessarily what I believe. I do believe that there is an afterlife in some form, but maybe in the same form that afterlife is you being part of not everything that is life, because Earth breathes, Earth lives.
That's what they believed in the Wicker Man.
Yeah. So it maybe
Sterile.
but maybe that form of collective consciousness is when people go into that state that is accessible. We create this collective consciousness.
We're always trying to expand our consciousness to find something beyond, to find God, to find the spirit realm, the spirit world. Like Michael Persinger, the Persinger helmet, that stimulates an area of the brain and makes people have a God experience that they have some deity or some entity in the room with them. And hypnosis, again, a shortcut to that. Focusing.
Well, you think about it. If you take a bunch of people in a room, and I'm not saying this to say that I am Catholic, I'm Christian. I do believe that there's some form of positivity. I do believe in God. But if you take a collective of people and put them in a room and say this exists, and you do these prayers and you do these rituals over and over again.
Are you talking about mass hypnosis, like a room full of
mass hypnosis? Why not?
What are the limitations of hypnosis? Well, how is it limited? Well, you can't lead somebody who is a moral person to commit an immoral act.
Yeah.
You can't say rob the bank. Unless you say, your mother is being held hostage and she's in that bank. But really you can't. It has its limitations. You can't have somebody do something totally kaplooey. Make him flap like a chicken in front of a room full of people. But
well, yeah, for sure though. But could you not take a group of people and suggest to them to be good people or to believe in this one thing, and repetition, putting themselves in that state? Because like Sarah Youssef said, and she asks a lot of great questions, just says a lot of good statements, is a form of prayer, grace, a state of hypnosis. Because it's a really good argument. I'm not saying it's factual or I technically believe that, but the paranormal is a field of theories and non-fact. So
think of Berlin in Germany, 1932 to 1937, the rise of Adolf Hitler, the demigod.
The demigod.
And a demigod in a sense.
Yes.
There you have a room full of people being hypnotized in a broad sense.
No.
Thinking as a collective.
The third right.
Being so inspired by their cause. That was a containment, a microcosm.
It was an illusion.
Reality. Yeah. An illusion in that sense.
Yeah.
In a sense, thought is an illusion, or it creates illusion. And you got this containment, you got this environment where that is their focus.
Yeah.
That is the highest reality right there.
And they also too that they were led to being stated that they're the Aryan race, that they were the best race, that nobody else deserved to live. or be associated, especially the Jews. That was their biggest target because of this traumatic experience as a child, but more so than anything. But that was their foothold. That was what their belief was. That was what was put into them. What people followed. Not everybody believed that. A lot of people were forced to.
Nowadays,
serve,
if you watch
but-
footage of Adolf Hitler giving one of his rousing speeches,
Oh, he was a great speaker.
I mean, even now it is chilling to watch that. But if you could imagine being in that room at the time, you know.
He was commanding. Like
So,
his
yeah.
presence, I could have only imagined what his
You're a
presence.
child of Germany,
Mm.
Germanics,
Mm.
of old Deutschland. And
Mm.
this leader who will propel his race, as it was seen to be,
Mhm.
his people, out of the shards and ruins of what was the defeat in World War I, and then they, bring them into a world power. It seemed meant to be.
Mhm.
So
Hey,
that is a form of hypnosis, just not called it commonly. Who we got?
what is it called? So, in the same form, another show that we've done, cults.
Yes.
Do you think cult leaders employ some form of hypnosis?
They
as
become
well?
masters at it. They learn how to manipulate their flocks.
There you go.
And
So
that
you
is
see
natural.
everything connecting here. Hypnotism is very vast, even though it is specific to one thought, one ideology, and what many people's thought pattern. But it's really
If you have the
expansive.
cult leader in a
Yeah.
contained environment, in their tabernacle, in their temple,
Yeah.
saying to his flock, his followers, he's got them in centered, focused on his message,
Mm.
whatever how bizarre that message may be. He says, "All of you, rise!" And of course, they all in unison stand up. Nobody
Mhm.
questions it. They might wonder why he's asking, but it's going to be some great reason, some good experience coming upon us. You are all lighter than air. Feel it, feel it. These people, in their minds, they're levitating.
Mm-hmm.
They might have their body weight would have lessened. They're so caught up in that miracles happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in unison. They're thinking with one mind. They're thinking as a hive of bees, which is zoologically a hive of bees is classified as an animal.
Yeah.
Because they move together. They think together.
Yeah.
And humans hook up that way.
Yeah.
Charismatic cult leader. Well, what else we're going to call them? It's not a cult to the people in the cult. They are masters at manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
They know those hypnotic tones. They know
Mm-hmm.
how to lower their voice. They know the repetition.
Look at
the
Manson's eyes.
Oh, yeah.
His eyes was hypnotic. Like you looked into his eyes, people.
I would find that a disturbing
Rasputin,
experience.
especially his eyes.
Even in his photographs, you can see there was something different about that.
like you
Those
pierce
deep set,
Mm.
glowing eyes of his,
Like-
like two candles,
Yeah.
glowing.
Like I can imagine news putting people in a hypnotic state. Like they just because they put themselves in like a form of terror, which leads them into their suppression.
Do you think that's how Rasputin assuaged the Tsarist,
A form of
the Tsarist,
hypnotism.
hemophilic attacks? He assuaged those, arrested the bleeding. The Tsarevich being the royal son.
Well, I think like I said that during that show, I think it was because he stopped the aspirin, and that was very popular back then, and that does thin your blood. So if you have a very bad injury with his disorder, with his medical issue, then of course he's going to bleed heavily. If you stop the aspirin, then the blood thickens.
But was it as simple as that? I don't know.
I think it was, unfortunately.
I tend to think Rasputin was doing something that was borderline miraculous,
I don't know.
but of the mind.
Yeah, possibly a mixture
There's a
of
certain
both.
point where it transcends, and even the mind becomes spiritual.
Yeah, I think a mixture. Maybe it was a mixture of both.
Oh,
aspirin
probably. Most
and
things
the
are.
suggestion. Yeah.
A combination of factors when you research them. Who else we got? Who's
There is that.
mhm.
Cassie.
Hi there.
Hi guys, nice to see you. I hope you are doing well.
Oh.
Carl Johnson, those metal St. Francis and Sam betting supposed to have stopped what was going on a lot. If the void has changed for the better, and I'm staying vigilant. Thanks always, Casey. Also,
You're welcome, and thank you.
um,
Thank you for always keeping in touch with me. And let me know of your progress as I let you know of mine.
was a master manipulator for sure.
Mhm. That he was, and used whatever was at his disposal to manipulate.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it has a lot of our topics have a connection to hypnotism or a hypnotic state, hypnosis in some form. So it's very interesting. Like, this is not our last show, of course, but it's like everything that we've done so far has tied into this show. And
it's an evolution. These
is.
topics, one is fed off of the other, and they produce a product.
Yeah. Well,
it becomes more and more refined. Now we're talking about hypnosis, which is a very commonly known term, but it's the mind joining with the spirit in a sense. So it's like the mind doing things it shouldn't be able to.
And on top of it, too, is that a lot of people always ask what goes into being a demonologist or studying demonology or being involved in applied demonology. This is a part of it. Understanding hypnotism, understanding what the human mind's capable of, understanding how it's been used throughout
That's why
time.
I thought this would be an ideal topic for us, hypnosis.
Yeah.
That's something we haven't touched on centrally before.
I think everybody wants to hear about demonic possession, EVPs, very bad hauntings.
Well, here you've done it all, yeah.
But no, seriously though, the hypnotism and the many forms of what we talked about throughout our shows have a lot to do with demonology, how we assess cases. And as I said, I don't know if you know certain people, but I know certain people that haven't employed hypnotism and using a clinical hypnotherapist in their cases. And so,
I would hypnotize somebody if it led to that and they requested it.
Which they did.
Counseling about demonic oppression. Because I can't make them do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah, for sure. But these clients wanted to know
what would I say? Let the demons speak through you. No, I wouldn't do that.
No, for sure. But it has so much connections to what we do. Demonology and applying it and assessing and being a mediator or involved in that intervention as an intercessory. We have to understand many different levels of like many different branch ways, understand different religions, ideologies, methodologies. We have to understand these things to some degree. We're not masters. We're more of a jack of all trades. A master of maybe.
Yeah, but we are, of course, learning as we go along.
But yeah, it's always learning. The human mind's always developing. We're always learning new things in science, medicine, better understanding ourselves as individuals. So there's so much more to understand. What's out there? Is there life beyond us? What is Earth? Is there Bigfoot? There's so many questions. And
every week we answer those questions right here in this forum.
But I don't know.
We answer them.
Well, we create hopefully for people, our listeners.
Well, we analyze those questions. We open up.
We expand their minds. Not everything that we say is factual. Not everything we say is what we necessarily might believe in.
Yeah.
But we like to bring different topics at hand into play because there are so many different opinions on specific topics. Some people think hypnotism is a crock, right? Some people would swear by it. It's just like how people swear by psychics and mediums.
Well, how do these people
swear
think
by
it's a crock?
ghosts?
How do they explain to people who go into a trance in a stage show and they think they're, the chicken?
Chicken,
they're told to forget their name, or they forget. You'll remember every number except the number 6, and then when they're counting, they go to 5, count their fingers, 5, jump over to 7. Then how do they get 11 fingers? How did that happen? Now, how do people explain that away? They must think their audience plants. And stretching into UFOs and abductions. UFO is not my favorite topic because I can't do much with it. I don't see them.
But the same token, that's actually a really great.
Those subjects, it's very similar to hypnosis in that the abductees, supposedly their memories are erased or nullified, but those memories are suppressed. The memories are still there.
Well, actually, there has been cases of hypnotism being used on people that have been abducted.
And Betty and Barney Hill, the classic case of that.
But was that hypnotism a confabulation? Was because they believed they were abducted when they started presenting the recesses of their mind of what occurred? Was that all creation?
Was it reversing another form of hypnosis? The memories were suppressed, either biochemically or suggestively, by the aliens, the abductors, and then use hypnosis to uncover those memories. Well, I don't know how reliable the memories are, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if false memories were created
I think so.
So-
at least to a degree.
Darius says, I think anyone who holds a position of respect or importance within an organized religion or cult has a degree of hypnotism over their followers. The psychology of group conformity is strong. Very, very true.
Oh yes, there are many factors, psychological factors come into play. I used to belong to a very, I would call it a severe Christian church back in the 1980s. And they were using all forms of suggestion in those sermons. Now the sermon, the crux of the sermon should be its message, not how it's delivered. But there was, you realize you're standing next to the gates of hell. All of you here, and, it was frightening to hear it talk like that. You are worthless in the eyes of God. You have nothing to give God, but he loves you. Kind of contradictory. But the way those messages were belted out and the way nobody dared say anything except amen, amen, amen. Yeah, it was mind control. There were many factors that made it, but it was, the message had to be powerful, had to be riveting, but it had a lot more to do with the way those messages, those sermons were presented than the actual content. Why did the evangelist have to raise his voice at, key times, key phrases? Why did he have to scare everybody?
It's like
yelling,
wake
up,
yeah.
Or why can't it just be like books on tape and listen to the message,
Mm.
read the scripture?
Yeah.
But he had to be a charismatic leader.
Yeah.
He
had to hit notes. He had to hit forms of that those people's thought patterns. It's very interesting.
Then, at a certain point in some of the sermons, it would be like, I challenge everyone here to empty your wallets right now. Are you holding back from God? Be a hilarious giver.
Mm.
Give so much that it's funny. Well, then you question it afterwards.
Mm. So, is there anything that you have left to say on hypnotism?
I can say
we
God.
we are at 9:00.
Oh, okay. I just want to say that what we started out with, Franz Anton Mesmer,
Mm-hmm.
had a good act going. He was very popular in the European theater there, France and England, and then he was laughed at. It didn't take him long. It took him about 2 years to fall out of popularity, but he still would demonstrate his properties. Animal magnetism. He was at least quasi-scientific in his consistency. There was something to that. Maybe it's the terms he employed that fell out of favor. Magnets, employed magnets and all. Well, he's got
he's Magneto,
Magneto, but there was still something to it, and that he was aligning, focusing, and getting the humors of the body to flow in sync.
Well,
What the humors are, we really don't know, but just to align the body and get it right. And he believed in the magnetic properties. That there are salts that respond to magnetism in the body. So he had something going. He was rather vindicated after a time.
Well,
He was a showman, but he had some sound principles at work there.
some of it wasn't wrong, right?
Mm.
That's what's very interesting. I think that when you look at the paranormal, I think a lot of things that are misunderstood, there are some things that you can look at and say, oh, there it is. It's in the bag, And I think hypnotism is very fascinating, and it works, but you also have to be cautious of it too.
We ran out of time to really hypnotize somebody. I like what Elise started out with, you're getting sleepy. No, that's me, she said.
Well, hopefully nobody slept during our show. Hopefully everybody thought it was a very good discussion. And
Stay awake for that hour, yes.
and thank you. Great stream. We'll be plugging the channel on my live streams from now on. Take care, Carl.
Thank you so much.
Bye from the UK. Awesome. We will actually be on a show on the UK at 4 p.m. Eastern. Of course, our time.
What is that
in the
trending
United States.
in our time?
But I don't know what it would be in their time. It's probably very early.
I
in the
think,
morning, right?
No, I think it's more late at night.
Late at night, yeah, that's true.
10
yeah.
o'clock their time.
So we'll be on. I don't know if that information will be posted, but I believe
Yes,
it's a
please
YouTube
help
show.
us out with that.
We'll watch that show, so we'll be on the UK. Celine, you have any final things on hypnotism? Anything to say?
She's been hypnotized for the last 20 minutes.
Yes.
No.
No, you're good.
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Next time we'll bring her. We'll hypnotize her. Right
we will
away.
hypnotize
We'll get that
her.
out of the way.
So everybody have a good night. Oh,
Thank you so much for tuning in.
yeah, we might be back next Thursday. You'll find out when we find out.
Yeah.
All right. Good night,
Get
guys.
around Thursday. Good night.
Hey, babe.